If you spend much time on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, there's a good chance that you've seen this guy. This is Kyle Gordon, and in addition to making comedy skits,
if I don't finish tidying up, Pops will send me to the hospital!
Dear God, an ethnic man has gained control of a submarine.
He also makes comedy music.
She's the ugliest girl on the beach, but I still want that piece.
But despite being a huge fan of musical comedy, I can't help but feel like there's something off about his music. See, Kyle Gordon's songs are meant to make fun of different music genres and their iconic tropes. For instance, We Will Never Die is all about mocking the Lumineer style of folk pop that was huge in the late 2000s and early 2010s. But when you listen to more than just a snippet of these songs, they wind up feeling incredibly hollow. And this is because the music is often lacking in the 4 elements that make parody music compelling. That's why today, we'll be comparing his music to music from Bo Burnham and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend in order to get a better understanding of why some silly songs work better than others. One element that all parody songs have, whether they realize it or not, is commentary. Anytime someone writes parody, they're inherently commenting on / critiquing the original song or genre. But my main problem with Gordon's music is that his commentary is often just calling attention to tropes. Take for example, the Irish drinking song. It exaggerates elements of Irish folk music, like referencing local towns,
It was Christmas in Kirkcoven, 1981.
consuming alcohol,
The boys were mashing whiskey and the girls were drinking rum.
and whatever this is called.
Hey, lie-da-lee-lie-dum.
And even though these callouts can be humorous, their commentary doesn't go much deeper than,
I do that.
the main focal point of this song is how much the Irish hate the British.
Kill a Englishman and throw him in the sea.
But Gordon doesn't have anything meaningful to say about this topic. The later verses simply continue to escalate how much the main character hates the English,
So I ripped out all his organs as I cursed the Queen and King.
instead of looking at the issue from a different angle. He's mocking the cultural resentment found in songs like,
Come out, you black and tans, come out and bite me like a man.
but the parody is neither insightful nor clever, which results in a take that just feels juvenile.
I said this is for the Republic, but my work here isn't done.
By contrast, Pandering by Bo Burnham features commentary that is more mature and nuanced.
You know, why is it when Bruce Springsteen sings about a f***ing turnpike, it is art, and then when someone sings about a horse, it's dumb inherently? I don't think.
Just like Gordon, Burnham draws attention to the problematic aspects of the genre.
The problem is, with a lot of modern country music, it is the exact opposite of honest.
It's critical of the way stadium country recycles the same ideas over and over.
Dirt road, a cold beer, a blue jeans, a red pickup.
And romanticizes dubious consent.
I'm hoping my southern charm offsets all these vibes I'm putting out.
But unlike Irish drinking song, Pandering has
glorious purpose.
and this purpose gives it substance. The song is all about how many country singers are disingenuous.
I walk and talk like a field hand, but the boots I'm wearing cost $3,000.
It points out how wealthy celebrities often create a humble persona so that their scene is more relatable, making fans more likely to give them money.
I got a tight grip on my demo's balls.
This purpose also makes it clear that Burnham isn't criticizing people who enjoy country music, but rather the celebrities that choose to manipulate them. On the other hand, Kyle Gordon's music often feels condescending towards the audience. If you look at We Will Never Die, almost every punchline boils down to, this music and the millennials that liked it are cringe.
Said no one ever. Yup, we did a thing. Having an epic night.
It's trying desperately to appeal to critics of the genre rather than the fans. Just look at Anthony Fantano's reaction to this song.
Oh my God.
He's nailing that feeling though.
He's nailing that terrible
2010s.
2010s.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Like, oh my God, he's nailing it.
Enough.
And it needs to be stamped out.
You have won the internet.
Now, it's fine to make a parody of a genre you don't respect, but if you're putting out a full-length song, your commentary needs to be deeper than genre cringe, genre bad. Which is why I think Gordon does so well when it comes to short-form content. Most of his songs have one thing to say, one joke, one piece of commentary. They're not very deep, and when you're only showing a 30-second clip, they don't need to be. If you're scrolling through YouTube Shorts and come across a guy doing a condescending impression of someone else's music.
You ever have one of those nights? Those nights you know you'll live forever?
It's pretty amusing because, yeah, songs from 2010 do be like that. But when listening to the full song, you realize Gordon doesn't have 2 minutes worth of stuff to say, and so he just repeats the same 30-second joke 4 to 6 times. Speaking of Bo Burnham, a lot of you probably watched his specials on Netflix, but did you know that not everyone's Netflix is the same? That's why I'm excited to talk about today's sponsor, private internet access. See, watching Netflix without private internet access is like buying a ticket to the Louvre, but not being allowed to see the Mona Lisa because you're Canadian. That wouldn't be fair. Well, streaming services often restrict what content you can access depending on what region your IP address is from. But with a VPN from private internet access, you can change your IP address to any one of the 91 available countries, allowing you to watch shows, access websites, and watch sports feeds that are normally locked to those regions. On top of this, the VPN's encryption technology will ensure that your data stays, well, private, even when connecting to public networks like your local coffee shop or the airport, which means no more worrying about hackers or even your own service provider keeping track of your browsing activity. The fact that one subscription can protect your entire household and all its devices already makes this a great deal. But now you can use my link to get an 83% discount on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month plus 4 extra months completely free. $2 for peace of mind and more content is the type of deal you just can't beat. This also speaks to the second element that I think Gordon's music lacks. Perspective is a key element of good parody because it prevents a song from feeling ignorant or arrogant. A great example of this is
Let's generalize about men.
from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It's a spoof on female empowerment songs from the 80s.
Right now we're angry and sad.
And it pokes fun at how people often generalize about the opposite sex whenever an individual does something bad.
Every member of the opposite sex. Oh God, we hate them.
Now, this song showcases a number of perspectives and is self-aware on a number of levels. First off, it realizes that generalizations about the opposite sex are often inaccurate or reductive. You can see this in lyrics like,
Let's not distinguish between them at all.
or,
Let's take one bad thing about one man and apply it to all of them.
the lyrics are exaggerated and ironic to point out how flawed these statements are.
There are no exceptions, all 3 billion men are like this.
But at the same time, this song recognizes why talking about men like this can be comforting for women. Even though it's somewhat critical of the phenomenon, it also admits that making blanket statements and having a safe place to vent can be a cathartic bonding experience.
This is some kind of primal ritual we need now and then.
And finally, the song also acknowledges that positive generalizations are equally ridiculous.
Hey, what about gay men? Oh, no, they're fine.
Gay men are all really great.
By examining the topic from different angles and maintaining a nuanced perspective, this song manages to be funny and insightful without being mean-spirited or one-sided. But with that in mind, let's look at how Kyle Gordon approached a similar topic. In Girls Are the Best, Gordon is making fun of girl power country anthems. Now, right off the bat, Kyle Gordon is, to my knowledge, not a woman. And while this isn't inherently a problem, I do think it explains why this take on the genre isn't as insightful as one would hope. The song admittedly starts out pretty decent.
Girls can be anything that they want to, smart or beautiful.
In just one line, Gordon calls attention to the underlying irony at the heart of songs like this. They often preach about female independence and agency, but only in a way that reinforces gender norms or the status quo. You're totally free to be attractive or intelligent, but not both, and there is no third option. Now, the rest of verse 1 is just mocking superficial feminism,
You can be a CEO or a fireman too, or should I say firewoman? Whoop-ah!
which is understandable. This approach to girl power is often overly simplistic and fails to acknowledge that misogyny is systemic and can't be solved by just doing whatever jobs men do.
Girls can be doctors. Hooray!
But it's when we get to the chorus that this song starts to fall apart.
Girls are the best in the world. Every good person is a girl.
The main punchline here is that female empowerment songs act like women never do anything wrong,
I'm a girl, so it means that I am good.
and that they make negative generalizations about men.
They're all bad, we don't like them.
Now, even if we assume that this is an accurate assessment of the genre, it still feels weak as a premise for a song. See, this chorus happens 3 separate times, and he never evolves the joke. The interlude even brings this song to a halt.
For this next part, I'm gonna need a little bit of audience participation.
Just to double down on this basic premise.
Yeah, go ahead, stand up. And hang your head in shame!
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is discussing the same basic premise, but it works because it comes at the issue from multiple angles and evolves over the course of the song. A song like Lower Your Expectations also works for the same reason.
Now you might think this guy only exists in your mind.
Sure, he's making fun of the unreasonable expectations women have when it comes to men,
A good boy, a bad boy, a good bad boy, a half good, half bad, half boy.
but he has enough self-awareness and perspective to realize men are guilty of the same thing.
Kind of girl that you can show to your folks, loves the movies that you like and always laughs at your jokes.
But Gordon only approaches his topic from one viewpoint, which frames men as victims who we should feel sorry for. Now, there is an important conversation to be had about how framing white men as inherently bad can affect how young men see themselves and the world around them. But this song is not having that conversation. This song just feels like Kyle Gordon listened to one girl power song and felt personally attacked.
We run this mother, who run the world.
Like, listen to the dialogue in the song's outro.
Yell at them, make them feel bad about who they are inside!
This characterization is so outlandish
Insult their genitalia and why you hate it!
that it doesn't create meaningful commentary. It just feels like Gordon doesn't understand women and is triggered by them having an artistic outlet where they can vent to other women. Even if you look at his discography, and not just this one song, he doesn't ever make an effort to critique the way men generalize about women. The closest we get are songs like
She's the ugliest girl on the beach.
and
I said, little girl, let's have some fun. I'm gonna marry that girl. She's 13 years old.
but these are more focused on critiquing individual men and not men as a collective. So his bias seems to extend beyond individual songs and into his overall body of work. There is one line that almost makes me think he's self-aware,
And you stay standing. You dish it out for 10,000 years. You can take it for a minute.
but the rest of the song makes it clear that he doesn't see any validity in that statement. Looking again at Bo Burnham, he shows much more self-awareness and insight when it comes to topics like white guilt. In the song Comedy, when discussing American white guys, he sings,
We've had the floor for at least 400 years.
but he also points out,
I'm a special kind of white guy.
and this is the core discussion being had by the song. Is it wrong to disregard his opinions because he's a white man? Or is it egotistical of him to believe he has something new to add to the conversation?
The world needs direction from a white guy like me.
But regardless of which answer is correct, the song actually acknowledges multiple viewpoints. It is simultaneously mocking the character's inner conflict
Lord help me channel Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side.
and making us empathize with him.
Should I be joking at a time like this?
Gordon doesn't exhibit any empathy for the women he's making fun of, which makes the song feel juvenile at best and malicious at worst. Speaking of empathy, that's another element that is critical for good parody. If you don't actually empathize and understand the subject you're making fun of, it just makes you feel out of touch and makes your opinions meaningless. Like, you know when you talk to an older person who thinks they're really clever for telling you not to buy avocado toast so often? It's clear when they talk like this that they don't actually interact with people younger than them, and their whole idea of kids these days comes from Fox News and their local Facebook group. If they actually empathized with us, the jokes would be more like this. Knock knock, who's there? BlackRock.
You're never gonna own a home.
Anyway, one of the best examples of empathy I've seen in a parody song is White Woman's Instagram by Bo Burnham. See, at least in the United States, white women are basically the safest demographic to make fun of. They're white, so mocking them isn't politically incorrect, and misogyny means that it's always trendy to make fun of women and the things they enjoy. Now, when the song first begins, it feels like Burnham might be doing just that. He points out a number of aesthetics white women enjoy,
Latte foam art, tiny pumpkins,
and implies that people making these posts are somewhat unintelligent.
some random quote from Lord of the Rings, incorrectly attributed to Martin Luther King.
If If we take the music video into account, the dramatic visuals and exaggerated performance suggest that Burnham considers these women to be pretentious or self-important. In fact, for all of verse 1, this song feels like it could have been written by Kyle Gordon. But once we hit the chorus, a few things start to change. The aspect ratio shifts, and Burnham starts recreating visuals you might see on some of these women's Instagrams. Even though he's poking fun at how quote-unquote basic these posts are, he's also presenting them in a way that recognizes their aesthetic value. The video is saying these images are worth looking at and wants you to understand why people find them appealing. Most importantly, the song's bridge reveals what Burnham has actually been doing all along. Up until now, he's been easing you in with mockery. As we've established, white women are the safest punching bag for comedy, so the majority of the audience is primed to go along with the song's initial premise. We are all too happy to dismiss them as basic and to laugh at the things they like. But then this happens.
Her favorite photo of her mom. It's been a decade since you've been gone.
Suddenly, we're not looking at white women as a monolith. We are looking at one white woman in particular, and we're confronted with the fact that she is actually a person and not just something to laugh at. From here, the aspect ratio begins to change, which communicates two things simultaneously. First, it communicates that the character is opening up and being vulnerable. Rather than posting aesthetic photos and curating her image, she's being honest and talking about her struggles with grief.
Mama, I miss you. I miss sitting with you in the front yard.
Additionally, the aspect ratio change reminds the audience that there is a person behind every post. Many people use anonymity and dehumanization to justify online bullying. We say mean things online that we wouldn't say to the person's face. But as the image shifts, we are forced to see the person we've been primed to make fun of. A person who is just trying her best to keep it together.
It's got a little better, but it's still hard.
In that same vein, it makes all too much sense when the aspect ratio begins to shift back and she turns her focus to curated accomplishments.
Mama, I got a job, I love in my own apartment.
Because of us, she doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable and has to revert back to her manufactured online persona. However, Burnham doesn't let the audience go back to being dismissive. The final line of the final verse is,
3 little words, a couple of doves, and a ring on her finger from the person that she loves.
and this ending is perfect. It basically says, hey, these things might seem basic, but they are important to this woman. She likes them, and they bring her joy. So what gives you the right to make fun of them? What makes you feel like your interests or aesthetics are so much better than hers? This song could have been just 3 minutes of laughing at white women, and it still would have been a big hit. But Bo Burnham is too empathetic for that, and instead made a song that actually has something to say.
They're all the same though. As are sunsets and rainbows, you viper.
Now, maybe that's too empathetic of an example. What about a song that's still going for a somewhat silly vibe?
Settle for me, darling, just settle for me.
The song is about a man being Rebecca's second choice, and is a spoof on classic Fred Astaire style musical numbers. The two main punchlines in this number are that Greg is sad and desperate,
I have no problem being picked out from the bottom.
and that he's just a little bit creepy.
Sugar jocks, I'm so bereft.
The point of the song is very clearly to laugh at the situation Greg finds himself in, but at the same time, the song still wants us to identify with him. Lines like,
My heart goes tippity tap 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 when I hold your hand.
make it clear he really likes Rebecca, and lines like,
Little girl, don't make me feel like a little girl.
emphasize how exposed he feels. It endears us to the character and gives us a way to feel what he is feeling. If this aspect of the song wasn't present, it would feel much too mean-spirited, but including empathy allows us to laugh at the character and also want him to be happy. The utter lack of empathy in Kyle Gordon's music means that there's really nothing to get attached to. Looking one final time at We Will Never Die, the singer is a character called Cody Redwing, but we're never given a reason to care about him, so the jokes aren't all that impactful. In Key of Awesome's parody of Somebody That I Used to Know,
Now and then we like to play one guitar together.
they create a backstory for why the whole band is playing one guitar,
Tony sold our other instruments.
and flesh out the dynamics between the different bandmates.
Tony's not the only deadbeat in this band.
Even though they aren't saying anything important in this parody, it's still engaging because we're given reasons to empathize with some of the singers.
My feet are cold cause Tony sold my shoes.
It's a little touch that goes such a long way and justifies having a full-length song rather than just a YouTube short. Finally, parody songs should have their own identity, which can mean one of two things. Either A, they should be good songs in their own right, or B, they should be funny even if you don't know the song/genre they're spoofing. In terms of option A, Gordon actually has quite a few songs that do this well. My favorites are Planet of the Bass,
Life, it never die. Women are my favorite guy.
and Selecta. Just like all his other songs, the lyrics suggest that these are meant to make fun of their respective genres and the people who enjoy them. But unlike his other music, these songs are produced to a high enough quality that if you enjoy the genres they're spoofing, you'll probably enjoy these songs. The instrumentals in Girls Are the Best are just functional enough to evoke the country vibe Gordon is going for, but if you like 90s rap from the UK, Selecta goes kinda hard.
And if you wanna boogie, yo, let's tango. Hit him with the Rambo, right up in the mango.
It's the same thing you see in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. The song is all about a weather phenomenon exclusive to Southern California. The joke itself is targeted at a pretty specific crowd.
I understood that reference.
But the music is good enough that it doesn't matter. Like, maybe it's just this doo-wop, but I'm ready to go steady with a girl and take her to the sock hop. When it comes to option B, however, that's where Gordon has a big issue. As I mentioned in the intro, Gordon's music is mostly focused on calling attention to silly or problematic tropes within a given genre. He's not going to say anything meaningful about those tropes, but he will point out that they exist. This means that many of his songs rely on the audience A, having knowledge of the genre and tropes he's critiquing, and B, agreeing with him that those tropes are bad. In Ugliest Girl on the Beach, the main joke is that bossa nova singers are actually pretty sleazy.
My music is about love. It's about making love.
Now, if you disagree with that premise, or just don't listen to much bossa nova, the joke doesn't really land all that well. Sure, you can understand the punchline through context clues, but it's another example of the elderly and avocado toast. The joke is obvious, uninformed, and uninspired. Burnham avoids this issue by not making his songs about a particular genre. 5 Years is meant to sound like a Drake song,
You're my best friend, I love you.
but the humor is mainly about a couple bickering.
How come every time I need to take a poo in the bathroom, you out of the blue need to use the bathroom?
Problematic sounds like an epic jam from the 80s,
Father, please forgive me for I did not realize what I did.
but it's meant to criticize the modern issue of cancel culture and celebrity apologies.
Isn't anybody gonna hold me accountable?
By not focusing his parody around genre tropes, Burnham songs have their own identity and can be enjoyed in their own right. You don't really need any context because the humor is self-contained, not self-referential. Even in a song like Pandering, which is focused on critiquing a specific genre, he adds in the scarecrow jokes
That is a scarecrow.
that anyone can laugh at, even without context.
It feels like, hey, it's a scarecrow again.
Ultimately, creatives get to choose what medium they work with, and if you choose to deliver comedy through music, you owe it to your audience to give them good music, not just good comedy. Silly songs don't necessarily need to have something to say, but they almost always are better when they do. And if you're not really trying to say something important, you definitely shouldn't say something mean. Regardless of commentary, I think good parody should also celebrate the thing it's making fun of. If you don't think that type of music is worth listening to, why are you asking your audience to listen to your version of that music? It's fine if people don't have something insightful to say, but then why expect people to listen? If you like this video and want more analysis of music, check out my videos on Moana or Wicked. I'm Dylan, and this has been The Writer's Block.